What up, babes? We are talking about my twin pregnancy and twin birth story. We're so excited to finally be here and talk to y'all about this. I was very, very sick.
Like, why is she so sick?
Two
She's never been this
placentas,
sick.
yeah. We had fraternal twins, so there were 2 placentas and lots of HCG being produced. Very, very sick. And honestly, we did the genetic testing really early to see what sex we were having before we even thought we were having twins. And it said there was a boy because I had, you know, the boy's DNA running around in my bloodstream.
Didn't think about there could be a girl in there.
I know. And so we were like, okay, 3 boys, you know, this might be good. I'm super sick. I don't think I can do this again, even though I really wanted
to have
4.
Yep.
And so we just go about...
We wanted to have 4, of course.
Yes. The man's viewpoint. And so that is something to be kind of thoughtful about, is like, how sick are you in your pregnancy could kind of maybe determine if you're having twins or not. Maybe not, just because some women are more sick in their first trimester. But I had not been super sick with my previous 2 pregnancies. And so there was something just kind of in us that was like, what if we're having twins? What if we're having twins?
Yeah, we said it a few times.
And then we show up to my appointment. I am just about 12 weeks pregnant. And we're sitting in the waiting room, and Ben says, what if we're having twins?
Yeah, I was like, what if?
What if?
What if
And
you had twins? And I stop it.
Whoa. Why did you just say that, Ben? Because earlier today I was thinking the same thing. Why did you just say that? The sono tech calls us in. I lay down on the table.
I jokingly, you know, she puts the probe on, and I jokingly say, hey, there's why you're sick. Saying,
and I'm looking
there's
at it like,
a baby
there's 2
in there.
babies right there.
And I'm just like, I see a bunch of goobly gop, and I'm like, oh, there's a baby. That's why you're sick. Ha ha ha.
And the sono tech says, oh yeah, you've got 2 babies.
2. I wasn't seeing it.
And I just started crying. I was holding onto your hand. I was like, oh my goodness, Ben, this is crazy. This is crazy. And we were so excited. We call your parents first just
called my
because
parents.
I never want them to feel like they're left out because they live in a different state. So we called your parents, told them. Then we called my dad, who is an OBGYN.
Yes.
And he was at work at the time.
Oh, girlfriend.
Oh, wow, girlfriend. My dad calls all of his women,
his patients girlfriend.
It's
never called his daughter girlfriend.
Nope. And
it was 15 times.
Over and over and over. Wow, girlfriend, this is crazy. Wow, yeah.
It's going to be crazy, girlfriend.
Your life's going to change. And we were just cracking up because we're just so excited. We're not thinking about all of
could go wrong.
The craziness yet. We're just excited.
Yep.
And it's probably one of my favorite parts about our story with the baby twins is that I recorded what everybody's responses were, because it's so fun to remember how everybody responded differently. Your brother, my sister, my mom, but my dad was just great.
It was priceless. My brother and your dad were the best.
Yeah, your brother just...
Oh.
Well, what a blessing.
Bless
the
Lord.
My dad is, of course, thinking his daughter has a twin pregnancy, and he's thinking high risk. He's thinking about everything that could go wrong. And my physician, I loved, he was more of this laid back, everything's going to be okay. Yep. You don't need to go see a maternal fetal specialist yet. Nothing's going on.
We saw one.
We did go see one.
Because your dad's like, you're going to see one.
Yes, and I did.
You're going to go see one.
I did keep everything copacetic, and she was great. Maternal fetal specialist. They have great...
Okay, let's get real. She was great. We're sitting in the office. We haven't even gotten to the appointment yet. And she goes, we're never coming back. I'm never coming. I am here for my dad. And that's the way it is.
Okay, yes. I did not want to be there. It's true.
Hey, you brought me into your story.
Yes, and it was it's a university hospital, so everything is very official, very formal. Not
was
a
that
lot
too
of
much?
No, it's not a lot of this comfortable, homey feeling. So the maternal fetal specialist recommended, stop it, that I take aspirin daily. There is some research to show that it possibly could prevent preeclampsia.
Yes.
And that's something, of course, that you don't want to have happen in pregnancy. In my research, I personally said, I know my body. I know my health.
You know your risk factors.
I know my risk factors. I am not going to do that. That was my choice.
Personal decision.
My physician was okay with that. He also said, yeah, I don't really think that you need to. He was totally okay with it. We were on board. But it was this conversation that I had to have with my dad weekly during my pregnancy.
Are you taking your baby aspirin?
Yeah. No, I'm not, Dad.
No, I'm not.
This is why.
You should be taking your baby aspirin.
And this is where, as a mom, truly I want to encourage mamas that are listening that when you do your own research and you feel confident about your decision, to always have like that research that backs it up. That you're not just making these decisions that are just like haphazard. Like I know myself, I know my body, I know my risk factors, I know what the research shows. And so that's why I'm not going to do it, because the research was not strong enough with the baby aspirin that I felt like I was going to put a drug in my body every day if it wouldn't really help in the long run. And
you
that was
really
my
have to
personal
have
decision.
Ownership. I think ownership is really important. Understanding the knowledge, not just like you said, making I read this one blog, this one person said one thing, like dig deep. You're willing to go through the research.
You have to pull lots of thoughts together and make the decision kind of on your own.
Yeah, which is what you've done a lot of. And so what you're saying is like you took the time to say, I stand by this, I'm willing to take the risks, and I know why I'm taking the risks.
Yes. YouTube content is great, but sometimes it's really hard piecing together all this information and content for you to love your birth experience. And that's why I've created a complete course. It's the backbone, everything that you need to love your birth experience. Plus, I am very pro daddy doula. I love it when dads are in there supporting mamas giving birth. So if you want me to join you on this journey and give you everything that you need to love your birth experience, then go ahead and click the link below, check out the course, and I am so excited to go on this journey with you. By 16 weeks pregnant, I was already feeling a lot of pelvic pain, pubic pain, the relaxin, that hormone that softens all of your joints and gets your body ready to give birth. It was in full swing and everything just felt loose, and I was very tired. The nausea didn't really go away into the second and third trimester.
No, you had it all the way
It was just kind of nagging there. Pregnancy was very difficult. I journaled a lot that this is hard. I'm working through this. I have 2 young children at home under the age of 3 at the time, and it was hard, but it was beautiful. And so 35 weeks, my physician asked me if I was okay with getting steroid injections to help the baby's lungs develop in case they're born early.
Yes.
That they would have a chance at breathing on their own.
Yes.
So they maybe wouldn't have to go to the NICU. First I said, sure, yeah, sounds great. I go home, do a lot of research, and
this happened a lot in her pregnancy.
I was like,
she'd say yes, and then she'd be like, no.
I don't really like some of those studies that are showing some developmental problems later on in life with the babies that receive steroids.
Yeah.
And some of the research showed that it was large doses given over a short period of time. So I show up on Monday at my visit. Doctor walks in. He says, I see on your chart, so you're not getting the injections. And I said, yeah, you know me. And he cracks up and says, yep,
yeah, I know you.
I know you. And we left it at that. He understands that I've done my research. I know the risks. And we're just going to keep these babies inside the oven. They're going to cook a little bit longer, and they're going to be born at term. 37 weeks is a bit early, but it's still term. So we want to make sure these babies get to 37 weeks, and that's what we had been praying for.
Yep, we're shooting for that.
Can they get to 37
Absolutely.
weeks? So we get to 37 weeks, and I am 80% effaced, my cervix, so it is really, really thin.
Yes.
And it is about 3 centimeters, so it's open a little bit. I'm having all of these prodromal labor contractions, just contraction after contraction every day. And they're not really painful. And I have all these videos on prodromal labor, what it means. You know, okay, so I'm having just these regular contractions. Why aren't the babies coming?
So then almost every night it was a conversation at 10 p.m. Do we go in? I mean, this went on for a couple of weeks.
I did not want to give birth to twins at home.
At home, yeah. And that was the hardest part.
And on top of that, baby B, which is my boy, I have a boy and a girl, he's on top. He is the baby that's just floating around. My baby girl is down in the pelvis, engaged in the cervix, head right down in there, ready to come. She's like, I got this, let's do this.
Party time.
Yeah, and Lawrence is just up there floating around. Breech. He's Breech. He's butt down. And we're like praying, please turn head down. We show up, and guess what? He's head down. Yes. But we're still a few weeks out. We're not even close to giving birth yet. Yeah. And then I show up to my appointment 2 weeks later, and he's butt down again. Yeah. He's just all over the place. And to this day, he is still just all over the place. Yeah. I love to give birth naturally. If you've seen any of my other videos, I love a med-free vaginal birth. At the hospital. It is my bread and butter. But I'm having twins. Everybody says, if you have twins, you should elect to have a C-section. You're high risk, just go ahead and have a C-section. And if you don't choose to have a C-section,
you're going to have one anyway.
You're probably going to have one. Yep. And on top of that, you have a breech baby. Well, that's high risk. Like, why would you even try to attempt a vaginal breech birth?
Yes.
And Annabelle, you're going to get an epidural because in case we have to go to a C-section, you're already set and you don't want to go to sleep. And I'm sitting there. Yes, I think I'm okay with going to sleep. I would rather risk giving birth naturally, vaginally med-free, than not and having an epidural. I'll just go to sleep. If it has to happen, I'll go to sleep.
That was
my initial thought.
That was from a birth standpoint, outside of her story. What she did most, and what we encourage moms and dads alike, because we believe in the daddy doula process, right?
Daddy doula.
Being there. Okay. Talk to your doctor. Have conversations. Be annoying in a positive way. Have your research done. Have those conversations.
The quack.
Yeah,
the
because
good quack.
Because throughout this whole time, her doctor is understanding. Okay, first visit. Okay, here's a natural birther lady. Let's see how much she really knows. Second visit. Okay, crap, she knows quite a bit. Third visit. Okay, wow, she's no joke. Fourth visit. Okay, wow, she's really serious. They've built this relationship over time. She had her 2 births with a different doctor. Our first 2 boys were birthed at a different hospital with a different doctor. He doesn't know her. So there's a relationship you're building. Have those conversations to build that relationship.
Yep. And don't feel like you just say it once or twice and then it's like, okay, they get it. Every single time have this conversation.
Yep. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is how I feel about it. Remember, they see hundreds of patients a week. If not a day, if you're in a crazy practice. Talking about the epidural, we're talking about C-section, we're talking about going to sleep.
Yep.
So
this is going through my head every single day. I have my dad with different partners that he works with that it's like, okay, yeah, you should get an epidural. You really should get an epidural, Annabelle. Annabelle, you should really get an epidural. It's just a good option. Just get it placed. It's a good, safe option, especially if you're not going to have a C-section. Dr. It's kind of like, yeah, I mean, maybe it would be a great idea. I'd love it if you did, but we'll kind of figure it out. Oh, you have a breech baby. Okay, yeah, this brings in a whole new dynamic. So I started doing a lot of research on delivering and birthing
positions,
breech babies. Is it safe? Because there's all of this idea of like, you don't give birth to a breech baby unless you have a midwife, you're at home, and in that instance, okay.
But even that's just more of like you have a tolerance for risk.
Yeah. So, but it's like, is it okay? Is it not? Yeah. Lots of midwives say it's actually really okay.
Okay.
Like you get on hands and knees is the big thing. Breech births should happen where mama's on hands and knees and the baby essentially falls out. There's no manipulation, turning the baby. That's where the injury can happen.
Super crunchy.
Yeah. So what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I get an epidural? Do I birth a breech baby?
Find out next time. I'm just kidding.
We're going to share it with you. So let's talk Wednesday.
Yes.
Wednesday.
Yes.
We're in December. I'm having all these contractions. It's late at night.
It's about 10:30 at this point.
And I'm like, I think we should go in. I'm having these contractions like every 3 to 4 minutes. They're not painful. I don't get it. They're not painful, but I don't want to give birth at home. So we pack everybody in the car.
In our brand new minivan, thank you.
Minivan. I had a minivan. I'm a minivan mom now. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody gets loaded up. So and I call... And we were just at dinner with her family, and they said, if anything happens, call us. I called everybody 10 times. Nobody answered. No. So I'm sitting out front of the hospital.
We'll have our phones on. We promise.
Yeah.
Call my mom. Nope. Call my sister.
Nope.
Call her husband.
Nope.
Call my other sister. Nope. Okay, we're going to have to call my dad, who is at the
another hospital
40 minutes away.
Yeah, a different hospital, over an hour away. 40 minutes, fine. Under an hour away.
And I'm like, Ben, I'll go in and ask the nurses if everybody can come in, but I don't know what to do. So I go into the hospital by myself.
And I'm sitting like a Uber driver in the parking lot, just waiting with our current children that we'd already had.
Yeah, so I go in, I walk in, obviously still not really in pain, just kind of waddling, tell them, I think I'm in labor. I mean, I've done this a few times,
honey.
A couple times. But I don't know what's happening, but I just don't want to have babies at home.
Yep.
Finally come up because my dad, the hero, shows up to save our babies and take our 2 children home while you can come into the room with me. Nope. Send me home.
Yep. Oh, she was mad.
Oh, I was mad. So that was Wednesday. We get to Sunday. I'm 37 and 4. Yes. We have a regular meal with my family on Sunday.
Yep.
We have pizza for dinner. We go home. Everybody's sick. I've been coughing my lungs out.
Yeah. I was fine.
Our 3-year-old now,
just draining down their faces.
Fevers.
Oh, it was classy.
Yeah, and I'm super pregnant, and the children go to bed. You and I are sitting in bed. I'm scrolling Pinterest, looking at body inspo, so that after I give birth to these babies, I can get back to a normal body.
Yep.
Anything to get these babies out. Please get these babies out of me. So we make love and then put our clothes back on.
Probably
I go back to looking at
20
Pinterest.
minutes later.
So within minutes.
So scientifically, it works.
Yes. If your body is ready to go into labor, which mine was, it was trying all these like little contractions that were like, the body's like, how do we do this? It's just not working. There's so much stretch in the uterus right now, and there's 2 babies, and we're trying to contract. And then those prostaglandins that are in his semen, within minutes, get those contractions going. Super strong contractions.
Yes.
And we're like, okay, we'll just sit here. Waited an hour or so, a little bit longer. And I was like, okay, this time, instead of waiting till I think we should go to the hospital.
Whose idea was that?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Let's take the kids. Let's all go to Pop and Babs.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're all set. And I'll just labor there. So we get to my parents' house and
we went to sleep
on the floor, sick people on the floor. And I labor at my parents' house. Just do the squat positions. I'm up, I'm walking, everybody's asleep, and I just have a lot of peace. It's dark, it's quiet, and I just really start moving my body and get these contractions going.
You were doing your labor exercises, based on what you do in your course. Okay.
Yep. At 3:20 a.m., we decide now is the time to go into the hospital.
Yeah, and I was like, really? Like, you don't even seem like you're in that much pain.
Yeah.
Like, I'd seen her in pain for our first 2 births, and I was like, you're fine.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that, like, antagonistically, like a dumb husband. I just meant, like, I've seen you in pain. And you don't seem that pain-ridden.
I was still talking.
Yeah, you were fine.
And the thought is that I was in so much pain in my pregnancy that the contractions were...
They were almost a relief, you said.
Yeah, it was like, okay, let's finally do this. I've been waiting for this. There's so much pressure and just so much exhaustion. Let's do this.
Yeah. So you weren't like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. You're like, okay, I know what this is. Let's get after it.
Yeah. So we get to the hospital. I walk in. I walk up to the labor and delivery unit because I love to walk during labor. It gets those contractions just continued, gets those babies moving. Yep, moving the pelvis. We get up into the L&D unit. The nurses, of course, don't think I'm really in labor.
Oh, yeah. They're
I'm
like
just laying
chilling
there, the bright lights. I have my eyes covered, and I'm just breathing through each contraction. After a long time of checking me in and asking all those questions,
they check.
Then they finally check my cervix.
Yes.
And I am 8 centimeters.
Yes.
And I am almost 100% effaced.
This is the best part. They, like, go to check, and she just, like, stops and looks at you and goes, oh. Like, whoa.
Yes.
We got to get you in there. It was really funny.
This was at 4:13 a.m. that this happened, and they roll me into a laboring room, call our doctor, and get him in. And another physician, his partner, was actually already there. He is a very seasoned physician, the most seasoned actually in our town. And he's going to be there for the birth so that both physicians are there for just safety measures.
Yes.
This is where when our doctor comes in and he does my ultrasound and sees that my second baby, baby B, Lawrence, is still breech. And he tells me this, and we have a conversation about an epidural. He asks, okay, are you still not going to get an epidural, Annabelle? And at this point, I had already made the decision that if I could not be on hands and knees for birth, that I would get an epidural. And baby was breech. Right. If I couldn't be on my hands and knees with a breech baby, because my research showed that that was the safest way to birth a breech baby, then I would get an epidural. Because my ultimate natural birth is to not have to have a C-section for me. And so I wanted to give a little bit. I wanted to have the safest birth for my baby while still getting something that I wanted, which is still good for the baby. A natural or vaginal birth is still better for baby than a C-section if there is not an emergency situation. And so I looked at you and I said, okay, doctor, we have already decided that if I have a breech baby and I can't be on my hands and knees because the table is just too small and my doctor didn't feel comfortable me turning on a very small table, that I would get an epidural.
Yeah. And the lesson here is come prepared. Come mentally prepared. Come prepared with research. Come prepared with understanding between your spouse. Because she looked at me and she said, what do I do? And I literally looked back at her and said, I cannot make that decision for you.
Because we've already made the decision.
Exactly. And it wasn't me saying, I'm out. It was me saying, we've talked about this. You know your research. You know what you believe. So make the decision so you feel confident
And there's
about
not enough time in that instance to be like, well, let me talk. And in some instances, there is enough time. So don't rush a situation that doesn't need to be rushed. If you need time to think about it and talk to your doula if you have one, or talk to your daddy doula if he's there. But if the situation needs to be a situation where you should have already made the decision, then make sure that happens.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so he says, okay, great, let's get everything ready. Anesthesia comes in and I say, okay, but I only want the smallest dose possible because I don't want to have pain relief just for pain relief. I want pain relief because it's for the safety of my baby.
Yeah, and you need it, and we'll get to that in a minute.
So they give me a half a dose, plenty of medication for me, even a half a dose, and it dropped my blood pressure a lot.
Yeah, that was probably the freakiest part. It's so funny because I was talking to her later after the fact, and so many women are afraid of the pain, and so like they get of birth, so they get the epidural. We are more afraid of the epidural because it's a long needle. It hits a very sensitive spot of your spine. The side effects are uncertain depending on person to person. For her, it dropped her blood pressure very quickly, very substantially. She starts blacking out. And so for us, like the pain of labor, talking what you've said, is for a purpose.
Yes.
And so to feel the pain, if you know that the pain of labor is for a purpose and it's not there just to be pain for you, then you can look at the pain and say, okay, this is for a purpose. I'm going to use this pain to birth my baby.
Absolutely.
Where we are more afraid of the epidural, I'm more afraid of the epidural because of what it could do to her.
Yeah, I was actually like yelling when anesthesia was placing.
And I'm like pacing the hallway for the epidural. And I'm just like laughing at myself, but also very scared because it's like, we don't believe in this because of the risk factors that come with it. And it's not discussed enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we don't believe in this. I would say that I still stand by my feeling towards epidurals, that I think epidurals are used way too much.
Yeah.
I personally still would never get an epidural for my first 2 births. I still think, wow, that was not a good experience. So I still stand by, let's do a med-free birth if we can. Yeah. Let's aim for that. Let's train for that. Let's do it.
But be prepared for making the decision based on the data and based on your circumstance.
Right. And for me, that was because an epidural was the middle ground, so I didn't have to have a C-section.
Exactly.
Because once they placed the epidural, by that point, I'm 9 centimeters. They're pushing me off into the operating room as a safety measure in case he has to go right to C-section.
So we get into the operating room. And there's like tons of people. So if you don't know about that circumstance, there's like this doctor and this nurse and that nurse. And everybody's specialty is there in case one of the situation goes wrong, somebody can handle it.
Neonatologists are there. There is a baby nurse, nursery nurse. There are nurse practitioners.
We have a second doctor.
And he's there as the senior doctor for recommendations if there needs to be a second pair of hands.
Yes.
And anesthesiology is there, and
so
lots of nurses. Yeah.
And we get in, and the older doctor who had been in practice for, decades, brings me in and is chatting with me, and he was so cool. It was hilarious. I like pull my phone. He's like, "Where's your phone? Take some pictures." I like pull my phone out, take a couple pictures, and I like go to put it back in. He's like, "Don't put that away." And he like grabs it from me and literally like, and this was such a cool experience. Like literally runs around the operating room taking pictures of everyone and everything. So we have these amazing pictures of her giving like the back up. So we get in there, and he starts the process of delivering her, the first baby. And so she comes out at 6:40.
Okay, I pushed 5 times.
She comes out. You said you had some feeling. The epidural was starting to wear off at that point.
Yeah. Because I had a half a dose, by the time we actually get to the operating room, I can feel enough to push.
You don't feel like sharp. You just feel like that warm kind of
because they didn't continue to dose the epidural.
Exactly. So then from there, he's like, okay, I'm going to try and flip the baby. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't realize that was going to happen.
Yes.
And so
that's the whole thing. I got the epidural
so that
the doctor could place his hand up into my uterus, and while Lawrence is still in his sac, he flips him manually to head down.
So he puts his hand in, and
I didn't have to feel that pain.
And I'm like watching her, and she's holding her, and then all of a sudden he's like, I flipped him. And I was like, you did what? I was like, wait, that's it? Like, I expected this to be like a 30, 40 minute process of like him like finagling things. Literally flips him, and then she pushes. Oh, and then he ruptured the membrane.
Yep. So the sac with the water that the baby's floating around in, he ruptures it so that the baby can engage in my pelvis.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then he falls, and by 6:48, after 4.5 pushes, She pushes the second one out. So, I'm just giving him some praise. In 8 minutes, she delivers the first one. He flips the second one, and she pushes him out. I was like, hot dog. That was insane.
Yes.
Coolest experience of my life.
Yeah.
Which is why Daddy Doula is so awesome. Like, I didn't do all that, but I was like in it. I'm there. I'm understanding. I'm like celebrating. I'm like, it's just, you got to be in the action.
Right. And after...
I cut the cord. That counts.
You did.
I
you cut
something.
both cords.
I did.
You fully supported me. You helped me push.
Like a medical professional.
You are. And you were in the garb and everything.
Oh my goodness.
By the time that both of our babies were born, and they were in the 6 pounds. I'm not going to talk about ounces, but they were bigger babies.
Yes.
And I gave birth to both of them. They were both healthy, boy and girl.
Yes.
And nurses get me all ready to move over to my more comfortable bed. By the time I had given birth to both of them, I had almost the full feeling in my legs back. I actually helped myself move from the operating room table back to the laboring bed.
Yes. Also, if you're going to be the daddy doula, you will tell your nurses at some point, hey, we want this shot, we don't want that shot, like we want this rubbed in their eyes, we don't want this. You have to be her advocate because she's going to be so consumed with giving birth that like go up to the nurse, like be annoying, like it's okay, but like, hey, ma'am, like what shot are you giving her? Or hey, we actually don't want the cream because they're doing stuff on automatic pilot. This happens. So you almost have to have like that stop gap to be like, hey, love what you're doing here, but like these are mama's preferences, so just put that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes a great daddy doula.
Yeah, you're in it, you're making sure things are done the way that mom and you have talked about.
Absolutely.
Yes. I keep drinking this even though it's been gone the whole time.
So my last baby was born at 6:48 in the morning. We stayed that day, stayed the night, spent the next day at the hospital, and left by dinner time.
Pretty crazy. Yeah.
I had a vaginal birth of twins, and we left the next day.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
So it can happen. A beautiful hospital birth in a natural way can happen. It took a lot of preparation in my pregnancy. It took me taking care of my body, eating the right things, doing my research, not taking medication that I didn't think would help me. And then it took the mental preparation of, I can do this. I have a lot of negativity around me. I have a lot of moms on the block telling me, you're probably going to have a C-section. You're probably going to get preeclampsia. You really should get an epidural. You're probably going to have a C-section. And overcoming that and really centering myself and meditating and praying about my journey. And then coming into the hospital ready for the way that I want birth to happen. I know what I want, but then being ready for anticipating that and adjusting that sometimes things don't go exactly how we want, and we have to adjust to that so that I could still love my birth experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. More than anything, like we prayed with activity. So we didn't just pray and do nothing. You prayed with purpose, you prayed with a plan, you prayed with action, but then we still had that anticipated and just attitude so that if the worst happened, we knew what we were going to do.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to all of this.
It was fun.
It was crazy. We'll catch you on the next video.